Ora si registrerà la conferenza.
Great. So we are recording this meeting just because, as I said to Anna, we will share it on our human website, but we can still be quite informal since it's going to be more brainstorming than a meeting. It's because we met with Anna and Marco in Vienna, and we started about discussing a potential ECI on cannabis with other associations. Of course, the context has slightly changed, let's say, and so it's going to be more difficult to organize a proper ECI in the following weeks or months. But however, I will share with you in the chat the text of that was a draft of ECI on some European objective of reform of cannabis policies. I will also explain in the general lines of these objectives, and then we will see if these hi Mr. Bonello, hi Andrew. I was just introducing the meeting. I repeat very quick for Andrew, Andrew Bonello from Relief Malta. Maybe we can first have a round everyone to introduce ourselves and say for the association we are working for, and have a quick presentation. I could start myself. I'm working for the actually 3 organizations that are somehow connected. It's the Associazione Luca Coscioni, which is an Italian association working on the rights of sick people and many other things related to science. And then I'm working also for Science for Democracy, which is, let's say, the international projection of the Associazione Luca Coscioni. We are particularly engaged on the issue of the right to science, which is a right according to the UN treaties. And then I'm working for this European project called the Human, which is a project of non-electoral movement of popular initiatives. So the idea is to build together in a transpartisan and transnational way some initiatives to speak to citizens. We already managed some European citizen initiatives on the issue of carbon tax and on the issue of rule of law. I won't bore you with these details, but the aim of this meeting is also to see if something at the European scale can be done with popular initiatives. So that was a bit my presentation. If we want to have a short presentation of ourselves before starting the meeting, it could be useful. Maybe Andrew or Anna. Andrew, you have to turn on the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. Do you want me to go? Okay. So, yeah, basically, my name is Andrew Bonello. I am the president of Relief. We are a fully fledged NGO in Malta. Basically, our main aim was the introduction of or legalization of medical cannabis and recreational cannabis in Malta. So basically, I think we can say that we're 50% there because we've managed to introduce medical cannabis in Malta. So you can actually go to a doctor, get a prescription. Obviously, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. But at the end of the day, yes, you can get medical cannabis from the pharmacy. But we are continuing our advocacy basically to try and introduce the recreational markets here in Malta. I can say we're doing pretty well. We're quite close. Since I became president, I've kind of changed the direction of our NGO from one which was advocating the legalization, and now what we're concentrating on is advocating for what type of policy we would like to see introduced. We've managed to infiltrate, if that's the right word, government. We're very lucky to have a junior minister who's a parliamentary secretary who is very much on board with what we've been advocating. We've had meetings with her, and the ball is definitely rolling. This month we were meant to get some news, but it's been put down to the COVID disaster. So that's been put on they kind of put the brakes on that. But since Parliament is still sitting, we're hoping that this month, this junior minister, whose name is Roseanne Kutaya, we're hoping that she's going to be able to go forward and put forward our proposals. Apart from that, obviously, we very worried. Good situation in Malta is that whenever we start to see some progress, we always see a reaction from the authorities, basically law enforcement. And over the past couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of people getting arrested because obviously there's a reason for that. You know, the drug squad in Malta is like the drug squad in every other country. They're not very happy to see the government trying to move towards a regulated market. So yeah, that's basically what we're up to here in Malta.
Great, Andrew. Congratulations for all these activities. And actually, you may talk about yourself, because we heard about Relief Malta, and a friend of us told us to contact you because we were doing great things in your country, and so I'm happy that you are here with us. Maybe I will go to Anna, and also I can see Elsa that I didn't knew before, but could be interesting to hear from what association you're coming from. But first, Anna, maybe.
Okay. Hello. First, thank you for inviting us to join this meeting. I'm Ana Fuera from ENCOT. ENCOT is an NGO of European entities that are organized with the aim to regulate drugs. I came from the Spanish social movements, from the cannabis social clubs movements, and I'm working on drugs policy for more than 10 years right now. The point is the work we are doing in the European Union, that we are trying to introduce the regulation of cannabis in the new strategy on drugs that will come for the next year. We made some work in the civil society forum. We achieved the introduction of the cannabis regulation in the common position of the civil society forum on drugs for the new strategy. So they are saying that we have to regulate cannabis, and now the Commission is drafting this strategy. So we are talking with several members of the Commission, and then we are preparing the political impact of the advocacy in the European Parliament and the Council, because those are the next steps. I think that it could combine perfectly with the EC, and for that we are here to push it, to unite all of us, to push it with more strength. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Maybe Elsa, because it's the only person I don't know in this meeting, if you want to tell us if you're coming here for listening or something else.
Hello everyone. Yes, I'm just coming here for listening. I'm from Mission Publique, which is an organization based in Paris. So I'm right now stuck in Paris, and it's a pleasure to hear you today. And basically, we're a team of consultants working to implement deliberative processes, mainly working on the Citizens Convention for Climate in France. And yes, I was super interested in this subject, so I'm just here to listen to you.
Great, great. So we can start the meeting actually after this presentation. I will share with you. Maybe Marco has something to say because he's turning on the camera.
Yeah, I can introduce myself. In addition to the three organizations that Lorenzo mentioned before, I have also been a member of the Italian Parliament, unfortunately, where there was not use to introduce the government because Berlusconi was in government 10 years ago. All the three organizations are active on the cannabis / legalization of all drugs issues. As a matter of fact, on the 20th of April, which is, as we know, Marijuana Day, we launched some sort of a virtual civil disobedience in which hundreds of people planted the seed of cannabis, and they're now growing it at home to see how things will develop, because the Cour de Cassation just published a sentence in which apparently they consider home production for personal consumption no longer a crime. But if the plants are more than one, or if the THC or CBD goes beyond a certain percentage, or you are sharing it with someone, even if the other person doesn't give you money, it can still be considered an administrative offense. So we're now, this action was launched to have a further clarification of what is still a crime and what is not. That same day, we had a 4.5 hours webinar, which was in a way the first, maybe I think in the world, a public event happening on cannabis. We had over 160 people registered and all participated. Actually, one of the biggest events that we have always had also with the public in recent years to talk only about cannabis. The other important thing is that our parliament is also sitting, actually they're voting as we speak, on a decree to manage the sanitary crisis. The only thing is that despite the fact that before the Justice and Health Committees, there are a lot of proposals to legalize cannabis, and one is also the result of a campaign that we launched many years ago, collecting, as of now, over 100,000 signatures on a popular bill. This is technically the way in which it is called, to legalize production, consumption, and commerce of cannabis, but at the same time depenalize also the use of all other substances. Despite all these documents, it's also understandable, the priority of legislators these days is elsewhere. But in the webinar we had on cannabis, we had 4 members of parliament that in a way pledged to keep on pushing, because as of May here things may be relaxed, the lockdown will be relaxed, so a little more policy design and discussions will happen. One of them is also growing the plant, so we will see what is going to happen with this combination of outside, so to speak, civil disobedience, even if it's not really a civil disobedience, but also a work within the parliament, between the Senate and the House, and if they're willing to push forward this law. Unfortunately, the government is divided on this issue. The Minister of the Interior, who's a former prefect, a woman of sort of a law and order kind of approach, she is very much against the small pushers also, because she believes they create a problem in the streets. But otherwise, the Five Stars movement and the democratic movement and the far left, in theory, do not have too many problems with the issue. Now, the theory has to become practice, and this is where the problems are. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, for this introduction on the Italian situation. As you said, there are a lot of things moving in this moment in Italy because of this intervention of the Cour de Cassation. But well, after this exchange of national experiences, let's come to what we could do at the European scale. The aim of this meeting is also to see if we can put together European activists on cannabis on maybe a common objective, a common mobilization. And we actually started to discuss this during a meeting in Vienna, the Commission on Narcotic Drugs of the United Nations. We were there with Marco Perduca and also with Ana Fuera. We had the chance to discuss in an informal meeting a draft of ECI, European Citizen Initiative. For those who do not know, it's an initiative for which we need to collect 1 million signatures in 7 European countries. And I will share, well, right now in the chat, the text of these draft ECI. I will just summarize what were the objective of this draft of ECI. It's basically about a decision of the European Council, a decision of 204 from the Council that was laying down minimum provision on the constituent elements of criminal act and penalties in the field of illicit drug trafficking. So in the framework of the competencies of the European Union on justice and criminal matters, cannabis was put together with the other illicit substances regarding sanctions. It means that a minimum level of sanctionability is necessary also for cannabis, and this means that some sanctions that could be administrative sanctions, not necessarily penal sanction, but every country within the European Union needs to have this sanctionability for cannabis. So the proposal of the ECI was mainly based on the removal of cannabis, from this decision of the Council. This would have, of course, an impact on the European legislation, because this would allow every member state to have a full legalization. We know, as I just said, this would not be possible in a country of the European Union. And so this is just the technical objective that I was trying to explain without entering too much in detail. Of course, I send it to you the full text by email, and then we can also exchange some other documents. But apart from the technical objective, the idea is also to see if there is the possibility to have a common mobilization in Europe on a cannabis issue. So that was just our proposal. But the aim, of course, is to have a citizens mobilizations, because that could somehow push forward the European legislation on this. So I would maybe give the floor to someone else. You can also write your name in the chat if you want to have a say regarding this initiative or other potential European initiatives on cannabis. And yeah, maybe I will give the floor to Anna because I see she's turning on the microphone. This is just to say this potential ECI is just a suggestion. Of course, we can, if we are not ready for launching an ECI, if we want to discuss more about the objective, we could think about a common event convened by all of us, having more than one association working on cannabis. We have already 4 European organizations today from four different countries. So it could be successful to convene a broader meeting on cannabis, this time more informal, and let's call it, for example, États généraux du cannabis, and see and discuss more in detail the objective we want to address. That's just my proposal. If Anna wanna say something, let's start the discussion.
Okay. Okay. First, to say I like pretty much this initiative because we need to be united in the European Union to achieve the goals of the reform. Even that, the removal, the legalization of cannabis in the European Union, I'm so pessimistic on that because we will need an inter se agreement to can, in the international level, to can do this legalization, full legalization of cannabis. And if you see the agreements on the rescheduling of cannabis, not all the European countries are in favor of regulate cannabis, there is a very big diversity and different roles and different positions of the countries. So to achieve a complete legalization of cannabis, it's obvious that we need to make an inter se agreement in international level, and it would suppose around 10 years or something like that, or maybe 5 years to achieve this inter se agreement with the common position of all the countries. Yes, for that, we for several years we are defending, because finally the compromise of the fiscalization of the scheduling of drugs is of the countries, not of the European Union. The European Union have the decision framework that is in some kind combining with the international conventions, but finally it's the convention that directly got the compromise. The country got the compromise directly with the international conventions. You know, that's the point. We have defended the cannabis social club because inside the personal use, the personal use concept, and it is allowed in the decision framework. For example, in 2006, an MEP from the European Parliament, I don't remember if I for sure you remember, make a question to the European Commission that was answered by Frattini, but the Commissioner Frattini, and said that the personal use is not a matter of the European Union. It's not. They don't have competencies to can decide on the personal use, and for that we choose this line. Maybe there are another tools to can open a bit more than the personal use, but I see so difficult to completely legalize. Yes, at least in the next 10 years. I think we have to prepare this legalization. Also, when you put this in the field of work, you crash with different issues. First, with the harm reduction institutions or harm reduction entities that are totally contrary, each time less. But this kind of entities, and then we crash with the security, with the criminal markets, with the organization of criminal markets. So we cannot also legalize at one time, because it will destroy the mafias and this kind of organizations to introduce in the legal markets. For that, we think that the reform should be progressively and inclusive, and from the bottom, like the people who more suffer the consequences of the prohibitionist drug policies are the vulnerable people, and it's the people who we have to take into account first, the vulnerable people. If not happens, like in California, that all the people who is going to the jail now for cannabis delicts are black people, and the people who have the license of the dispensaries are white and rich people. So I think we have to reapproach these kind of regulations for Europe. We have to base our regulations on human rights. Yes?
No, yeah. I agree with that. And Andrew.
Yes, obviously we totally agree. I think that's what we need to do is work towards a bottom-up approach. What we're finding out in my country, especially since the topic is on the agenda at the moment, it was actually an electoral promise in 2017. What we are finding out is that obviously there will be no doubt some sort of corporate takeover once the introduction of recreational cannabis is introduced, because we can see exactly what happened with the introduction of medical cannabis, and the only thing the government, or basically the people working within the government, were interested in was that the biggest and the best and the richest companies come to Malta to set up production. So the whole basis of legalizing medical cannabis in Malta was built around the economy. It was basically a top-down approach, which is something we want to try and overturn, or at least point out and try and fight against when it comes to recreational cannabis. We don't want massive companies coming over from overseas just taking over the market with big CEOs and talking about the stock market and how much the companies are worth. And then at the end of the day, the user ends up having to basically like what happened in Canada. You end up with an expensive product and bad quality product. Unfortunately, we can see what is happening as Malta is a small country, so everything is like literally around the corner. And there are people involved in government that are advocating for a top-down approach, which is what we're trying to fight against. We've seen, multi-billion-dollar companies. We have more than 22 massive companies already set up in Malta. We know the reason for them to set up in Malta is not to grow cannabis, because our country is tiny. They just want to bring in the product, bottle it, get it EU GMP certified, and then move it on to Europe. This is the plan, but we are being sold a different story, that these are companies that are going to come in and provide a lot of jobs and pay a lot of taxes, when we know that the taxes are going to be 5%, if not less, and that's how we get them here. But my main point is that the actual medical patients here in Malta are the ones that are affected the most, because yes, okay, it is now legal to go and get a prescription and go through a lot of hoops and end up getting it from a dispensary, but it costs an arm and a leg. So we're talking about Bedrocan, which is available, is 16 euros a gram in Malta, and in Holland it's 60 euros a gram. So you can see how much more we have to pay. our medical patients have to pay. This is something we're trying to avoid, and I hope that at a European level as well, we can try and focus on, like Anna said before, a bottom-up approach with interstate agreements to make sure we can get this through. But I think my personal opinion is that this is going to happen one country at a time. It's not going to happen all together. And if we can all join together and support each other, especially with the countries which are nearing the actual implementation, then we can be stronger to make sure that big corporations don't take over the industry.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I think you both, Anna and Andrew, underlined some missing parts of the previous text. We could also redraft together a new text that could be able to emphasize more the aspects of human rights that Anna was talking about, and also the issue of medical cannabis that Andrew was addressing. But just to be more practical, and because maybe before introducing the issue of the council decision, I've been too technical. I just want to explain that the framework decision we are addressing is the one, for example, that Luxembourg was confronting to when they decided to legalize marijuana in their country. They couldn't, just because of this framework decision. So just to explain, the removal of cannabis from this framework decision wouldn't be a way to legalize automatically cannabis in the European Union, of course. It would be a way to allow member states to start this process of full legalization, as Luxembourg would like to do. Of course, we can, as I said, reframe a bit the objective and extend it to other issues. I was wondering, and so I will reopen the debate. If someone else wanna say something, you can repeat, write your name in the chat. But I was wondering if we can come up with a common text, maybe saying from the very beginning that is a text shared by ENCOD, by Relief Malta, in our case Associazione Luca Coscioni. I can see also Antonella Soldo from Radicali Italiani, another Italian association. Maybe Elsa from Mission Publique could be also interested. But if after this meeting we share some more notes on this text, and maybe we rewrite it and trying to integrate some other issues and aspects, if we come up with a common text with the logos of our association, showing from the very beginning that it's a common platform, maybe it could be useful to start from this text to convene a meeting open to European cannabis activists. Because one thing I'm noticing is that, of course, when something is shared from more than just national organization, but it's something common with other, also including your organization from several European countries. Of course, we have more credibility, and maybe it was the mistake that we had at the beginning, trying to launching this ECI. We hadn't a common adhesion from other organization. So if you are ready, for instance, Anna, Andrew, to put the name of Relief Malta, of ENCOD, under this common project, it could be a good basis to launch a self-convocated and common convocated assembly, online assembly of the European cannabis activists.
Yes, we're definitely up for putting something together. We have people that would be very interested in I've got someone working for me who would be very interested in looking through your link over there and giving some suggestions. Once we finalize a paper, yes, we'll be definitely happy to be involved and obviously endorse.
Great.
Yes, we do. God is in favor of this initiative, and I think we have to put some timeline or some deadline or something like that to try to have some periodic meeting or something like that. Yes, I think we need times. I mean, when we wanna publish and when we gonna call for the meeting. Yes, and if, for example, if I know before, I can share with all the members of FENCOD, and we can find more organizations. Yes, but I need the invitation, so a month before or something like that, and I can work for the people. Yes, because we have many organizations, and it could be more representative if we have people from all the countries of Europe. Yes, so maybe we can have a previous meeting with the interested people, like you told last week, Lorenzo, or like you are talking about. But we can make another previous meeting, yes, and organize some big meeting with all the entities interested, and then we can make some not public but semi-public invitation. Yes, that we can share with all our members and this kind of thing. What do you think?
No, I agree. I would give us, as you said, a month maybe to convocate this broader meeting with the European cannabis activists, and maybe in the meantime reframing a bit the text of the initiative, which is in the chat for all the people who are joining now the meeting. Maybe Marco Perduca has some experience in the convocation of a meeting. We have done just one on cannabis, the general states of cannabis in Italy. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's complicated to find a date. Italians are planning to reconvene on the 26th of June because it's International Day Against Narco Trafficking. But the moment in which we have a date, also with the 2 steps, if you believe it more necessary, we can send just an email out to. In theory, we have quite a wide network, but we will have to talk to others. I think the group that is based in Brussels, I think should also be interested at some point. What do you think, Anna? And then I have to go because we have a meeting starting at 3, and my phone has been ringing since 12. So I leave it to Lorenzo to collect all the suggestions. But I think the best thing to have a meeting is always to have a plan why we are convening a meeting. So it's either the finalization of the text, and possibly between now and, let's say, late May, early June, the lockdown situation is a little clearer, and so we can also start planning other kinds of activities. But sharing ideas is always fine, but we've been sharing ideas and knowing people for the last year or so, so we should take a decision at some point.
Yes, totally agree.
Okay, and yeah, thank you, Marco, and thank you, Anna. No, as Marco said, we have been for a year, more or less a year, sharing this text and trying to modify some lines and objectives. At the same time, the situation has completely changed, and of course, in this context with coronavirus, it's more difficult to launch an ECI, and so we are ready to reframe again this text. Of course, I would suggest to not be too precise in the redefinition of the text, because of course we already have a draft, and it would be a pity to start anew from zero to write another initiative. So it's good that this text will be the basis of the initiative. Of course, we can correct it a bit. But yes, I would say the most important thing could be if this new version of the text would not be just let's say a draft, but a common manifesto, maybe something that after a couple of weeks of discussion and modification, we can say, okay, this is a common statement from our association around Europe. And then from that, convocating a meeting. What do you think about that? Maybe Anna.
For me, it's fine, and the others?
Yeah, Andrew already said actually that he's ready to.
Okay. So it is
Yes,
fine for me.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, that's great. I mean, if someone else, someone who was quite new in this discussion, like for example, like I cannot read your name actually, but Elsa, exactly. I don't know. You were a bit put in the middle of the discussion with no previous framework, but what sounded to you?
Yes, it's true. But thanks for this passionating thoughts and all these ideas and initiatives. So since I'm super new in this discussion, I was just wondering if the initiative includes not only a meeting of activists, but also if there is the idea of implementing a global citizens dialogue about, I don't know, cannabis legalization, for example, in the framework of Europe.
Yeah, this is an idea. I mean, we are, as humans, we are also working on participatory democracy processes. So I think it would be a great idea to start something like a citizen assembly on cannabis. It could be part of an objective of the text. I don't know if this sounds interesting to you, to someone else.
It seems very interesting for us in Mission Publique, and we are super interested in this subject since many years. So maybe I'll have to share it with my colleagues, and then I think we would be interested to take part of next discussions.
Okay. So I don't know if anyone else has something to say. I would finish maybe the meeting for this time, saying that we will of course share with all of you the text, and then also collect your suggestions. If we will be able after a couple of weeks to come up with a final version and the official adhesion of your organizations, maybe enlarging the objectives to participatory democracy processes and also aspects on medical cannabis, the one that Andrew was mentioning, and even more. That would be a good way to start. So let's say that in a couple of weeks, after better discussion on the objectives, we can start thinking about convocating a broader meeting on the basis of this common text.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. So thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the meeting, everybody. We'll keep in touch, obviously, via email as well. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please send. We'll go through the link that you sent us, and we'll come up with some small suggestions. Obviously, I know you've been working on it for a long time. And we'll get back to you as soon as possible, and look forward to the next meeting. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you all. And yeah, Anna is saying something maybe.
Well, just thank you for inviting us, and thank you to everybody for sharing the information. And just remember to everybody that 2nd of May, we will organize the Global Marijuana March online. So I hope everybody here will be fighting the social media.
Great.
With you in the chat.
Definitely we will. Yeah, we will share it. Thank you for sharing this in the chat also. The hashtag GMM20, and apologize if for someone who was completely new. This was a bit a mixed of activists and people interested in listening, because as I said at the beginning, for those who weren't there, we recorded this meeting, and we will publish on the website of Humans, just to show that something is moving regarding European cannabis activism. So all those who were a bit new and get a bit confused maybe can send me emails for more details. But we had to start somewhere. So that's just the beginning. You will be prepared for the next meeting this time.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you, and bye, everybody.
Keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.